Be careful here. Wave your hand carefully.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Triple S. We are at a Soyuz launch.
Turn around.
This rocket is full. I repeat, this rocket is full. So they tend to want to get them up the elevator into the rocket, tied down, and let the fucking thing go pretty quickly. So an American woman, a Russian man, and a man from Abu Dhabi. The man from Abu Dhabi was F-16 pilot. Passed all the tests. He gets 8 days in space. The lady, oh my god, she taught birds to fly in a wind tunnel, as well as the some of the other amazing things that she's ever done. Yeah, crazy smart, this female going into space. And a cosmonaut who has always been a cosmonaut, it would seem, except for a fighter pilot. Was always in the highest class, has been to space many times. He's spent 2,000 hours in space so far, so he's going back up. Good on him. Good on him. So, and that is when. There's no countdown here. I'm trying to find a countdown for you people.
At 2:45 p.m. Sorry, doing some quick time zone calculations in my head. But from there,
well, that could be
5 hours and
13 minutes.
Minutes and 4 seconds per the timeline, so that translates to 348 minutes from launch to docking.
Okay.
Question, Jack.
But I'm thinking 13 minutes.
Comes from Miss Whitaker's
13 minutes to launch.
She wants to know, or they want to know, if each astronaut has their own bedroom. So there are currently 6 crew quarters
Bedroom?
for the International Space Station. You can think of that as their
Cities want to kick off. What fucking game are we playing here?
They have doors. There are 4 right now in Node 2, the Harmony module, and also 2 over on the Russian segment. And that's what acts as the kind of crew members' bedrooms. I know a lot of people have been asking, well, where are the other people going to sleep? There are 9 of them. They do have additional sleeping bags, and all of the crew sleeps on the same schedule, so lights can be turned off in some of the modules, and you'll just have different crew members in those modules for the short duration that we do have 9 crew members on board. Our next question comes from Renee,
Soyuz Russian launch.
Asked, in previous crew changes, a crew left before a new crew launch, but now we're going to be extended to 9 for over a week. Is this a one-time thing, or is this going to be standard? That's actually, we're doing something that is known inside of the space industry as direct handover. So that's when you have a vehicle arrive while there are still crew on board. It has been done in the past. It was
initially I was hoping to see the Japanese launch that we covered yesterday, docking to the International Space Station. I was hoping to see that. I had all the alerts to see it, but NASA TV has decided to cover only one thing, so that could mean 2 things. Either the Japanese thing didn't work out properly, because they don't tend to tell you straight away, and then they don't tend to show you what the fuck happened. China and Russia, very good at that. We always thought SpaceX was good at doing that, but it was just their system failing just the wrong time. Maybe. Well, we've seen all the video later on, so I think SpaceX would have wanted to see the explosions in real time. it would have made much better television. And that's what it's all about, really. I'm looking at this Soyuz launch, and I still don't have a countdown. I did have a countdown before of
Up to about 200 days, or a little bit over. Board, they're going to be up there for a long duration. It's common for long duration expeditions to be about 6 months in length. That's been the common practice throughout the life of the International Space Station. You do have a couple of different durations sprinkled in there throughout. Nowadays, or over about the last year, about 200 days is the common length, but some are even starting to surpass that. For example, NASA astronaut Christina Cook, thanks to some seat swapping, is going to be staying on board the International Space Station over 300 days, doing a very long duration mission. She's actually going to be setting the record for the longest single space flight by a female astronaut, and she's going to be getting very close to the U.S. record for a continuous space flight, which Scott Kelly set back during the year-long mission of 340 days. And one more for right now. This one does come from Matt. He wanted to know what's the top speed and G-force the crew's going to experience. The ride uphill isn't too G-force intense. They'll usually get up to about 3 Gs on the ascent, but the eventual speed they're going to reach is that orbital velocity. That's the amount of speed they need to maintain an orbit or a circle around the Earth, and that'll eventually match up with that of the International Space Station, which is right around 17,500 miles per hour.
28,000. I'm going to check on that now for you. 17,000 miles per hour. Does anyone remember what it is?
Well, right now we are 21 minutes and counting away from the launch of these 3 crew members. Jessica Meir and our crewmates did describe the significance and the symbolism of their Soyuz MS-15 patch, which you can see here during a recent crew news conference. Why don't we hear it from them in their own words?
Well, there were some of the key features for the Soyuz patch are the Arctic tern.
Yes, 28,000.
This is a bird that makes an incredibly far-ranging duration. For me, it's extra special because in my previous life as a physiologist, I studied birds and some migrations of birds, so I really like that element of the patch. And of course, that long-duration flying bird represents our long-duration mission and how special that is.
She taught birds to fly in a wind tunnel. She taught birds to fly
and also the colors, the
wind tunnel.
Our batch is representing the 50th anniversary of Apollo landing. Yes, the colors at the edge. And also you can see also a UAE flag with my name in Arabic. That's in Arabic, so if you're just wondering what's it's written there. So it's my last name, Al-Mansouri. It's written in Arabic. And also this batch is also the same batch flown the first time, Oleg, in his first mission, in the same design.
Well done, mate. Well done.
Ну да, как сказал Хаза, нам хотелось.
Yes, reiterating Hazar's words, I wanted to show some continuity between my first flight. My first flight showed a stork, and my second also had a bird on it, and this time we have this bird that Jessica mentioned. Also, we have a ship station that we're going to work on, then the moon, which is our subsequent goal as our next stage when flying in deep space, interstellar area. That's it. I think Jessica explained all
See how
of it, and
they've
Hazar
blocked the video.
Back right now
And
with a live
everybody
look at
knows
that Soyuz rocket
if
on
you're
the
a
pad.
pilot,
We are still
even a
counting
fighter
down. We are 18
pilot
minutes 30 seconds
in the
away from
Russian
liftoff again,
armed
scheduled
forces,
at 8:57
you
a.m.
must
Central
know
Time,
English.
6:57 p.m. in the evening
It is a
over there in
prerequisite
Baikonur.
to be a
The
pilot
Soyuz
in the
rocket
world
itself
today.
stands 162
Every
feet
Russian
tall,
pilot
weighing in at 680,000
knows
pounds,
English.
and consists of the Soyuz MS-15
Just so you
spacecraft
know.
inside of a protective shroud up at the very top, and the three-stage Soyuz FG booster below. The spacecraft itself was mated to the booster, and the three main stages were joined together earlier this week on Sunday. And then just 24 hours later on Monday, the Soyuz rocket began its trek actually from that integration facility
SpaceX
out
watched
to the
Soyuz
pad, always opening the door and starting
their
that trip
stuff and
right
go,
at 7 a.m. Baikonur time,
"That's a cheap way to
arriving
do
less
it."
than 2 hours later, where it gets raised to its vertical position
Probably where
for
they get
final
those,
pre-launch
they
preparations. It
fucking
moves
grid
out
fins?
on a rail car from that building out to the pad number
They're trying to
1,
land
and
stuff.
then these large clamshell gantry arms
They're trying to
swing up
land stuff.
to secure it in place and also offer access to the actual spacecraft, including that elevator that the crew rides up
You've
to
got
board
grid
the
fins.
Soyuz prior to launch.
They don't look like they're turnable
The
grid fins.
first
They just
stage
look
of
like
the
they're drag
Soyuz
fins.
rocket has 4 liquid-fueled engines that are strapped to the side of the core vehicle, and each of those is going to burn for about 1 minute and 58 seconds before they drop away. You can see those engines in this shot of that video from a little bit earlier this week. They're the small parts at the bottom that actually protrude out from the Soyuz spacecraft, and we'll see them light up just a few seconds prior to the liftoff and begin carrying the Soyuz into orbit. Here's a quick animation of how this ride is going to look. So those engines will actually start firing for several seconds before liftoff. Eventually, their power overwhelming the grapple arms that are holding it in place, and they're actually only held in place by gravity. So once the thrust of the vehicle is strong enough, it'll make those break away, and the Soyuz will leap away from the pad. Again, 4 strap-on liquid-fueled boosters help power the first stage, and they burn for just about 1 minute and 58 seconds. First, the escape tower will jettison, followed by those 4 boosters. Depending on if it's a clear enough day, we may be able to get some video making something called the Koryov cross when they break away. The launch shroud, once the vehicle's high enough, will depart, and then the core stage continues burning until it's time for the third stage. That core stage serving as second, burning until 4 minutes 57 seconds into the flight. The third stage lights and actually starts firing before the before that first stage, core stage, drops away, something called a hot staging technique. And that'll continue to burn until about 8 minutes and 45 seconds into flight. And then after that, it's time for vehicle separation. Soyuz will separate from the...
I definitely want to know what's going on with these grid fins on the side of the main. Or are they higher? Oh, now we get 15 minutes.
And again, a reminder, we are taking those questions. If you have any, hop over to Twitter, use that hashtag AskNASA. We'll be using that. We'll answer those questions throughout the day.
Let's see if we can find
Get as many today during this pre-launch, but we'll have plenty of time later on when we're
this launch and see if anyone's tuned in. And
so be sure to keep on sending those in. Now though, let's learn a little bit more about the Soyuz spacecraft itself, which measures in at 23.5 feet long, tipping the scales at 15,650 pounds. Soyuz itself, the spacecraft, is also comprised of 3 different modules. At the very top, you see the orbital, in the middle, the descent where the crew actually is, and on the bottom, the propulsion module. The descent module is situated in the middle of the Soyuz vehicles that has a customized seat liner inside each of the seats for these crew members that they're seated in during launch, entry, and landing. It contains all of the different controls and displays necessary for
Yeah, yeah.
After we get into orbit. The propulsion module itself, though, detaches during that final descent, burns up in the Earth's atmosphere along with the orbital module, that descent module. So that middle part, which has the heat shield, the only piece of the Soyuz that actually survives that firing re-entry. The entire spacecraft, not only serving as a crew transport vehicle, so getting the crew up into space and then getting them back home at the end,
Well,
also
there you
serves
go.
as basically their
Yeah,
escape
yeah.
capsule. So these are used in the event that they need to get off of the space station in a hurry for any reason. They use their Soyuz spacecraft as that emergency descent and landing. So there is always at least one Soyuz spacecraft for each of the spacecraft, not only serving as a crew transport vehicle, so getting the crew up into space and then getting them back home at the end,
Well,
also
there you
serves
go.
as basically their
Yeah,
escape
yeah.
capsule. So these are used in the event that they need to get off of the space station in a hurry for any reason. They use their Soyuz spacecraft. We are 10 minutes and 42 seconds and counting down to launch. Representatives from NASA Roscosmos and the United Arab Emirates, along with friends, family, are all watching just a short distance away from the launch pad that we're getting a live look at right now over in Baikonur. For a quick update on all of the activities there, why don't we go to Baikonur Vet? These are used and NASA Public Affairs Officer Rob Navius.
Dan, it is sunset here in the Central Asian Desert, and the multinational crew strapped inside the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft is set to begin its 6-hour journey to the International Space Station. Fall is in the air here in Baikonur, with the start of this mission in the offing, as Skropochka, Amir, and Al-Mansuri are minutes away from blasting off in their Soyuz spacecraft in the final crewed launch of this year. After today's liftoff, the legendary Site 1, where Yuri Gagarin began his journey into the history books more than 58 years ago, will be temporarily closed for renovation and modernization to accommodate future human spaceflight launches of the Soyuz spacecraft on the upgraded 2.1A Soyuz booster. The NASA delegation for this launch is led by the acting administrator for human exploration, former astronaut Ken Bowersox. About 1,000 people from the United Arab Emirates are here to watch their native son, Al-Mansuri, ride into their history books as the first Emirati citizen to fly in space. Against that backdrop, as we near the 19th anniversary of the start of a permanent human occupancy of the International Space Station, everything is in readiness for a ride into the sunset skies from this historic venue. That's it from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Now back to you at Mission Control in Houston.
And thank you, Rob. Getting some in-cabin views now of the Soyuz. In this view, in the bottom right corner, you're seeing the center seat. That's Oleg Skropochka. And then in the center of your screen, that is Hazza Ali Al-Mansuri. He's seated in the right seat for today's launch, making his first trip into space, the third for Skropochka. We're about 8.5 minutes away from the planned launch time. Why don't we sneak in a few more Ask NASA questions? Our first one comes from Zyriel, who wanted to know, when's the last time 9 people were aboard the International Space Station? Great question. It hasn't actually been that long. It was September of 2015 when there was a short taxi flight that brought up a Kazakh cosmonaut, and that was during the one-year mission for Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko. So again, it was another really long duration flight, and we had a crew member going up for a short, we call it a taxi flight, just about an 8-day mission. Our next question comes from Good Hope, who wanted to know, is there a possibility their flight path will be affected by the HTV-8 launch that just happened yesterday? No, it won't. This is something, as you can imagine, all of the different flight controllers look at very carefully. There's usually some constraints around when vehicles are arriving, but these won't be arriving at the same time. This Soyuz going to launch and dock today. The HTV-8 not set to actually get really close to the space station until...
in fact, we thought we were getting alerts that it was going to happen today. So we tuned in earlier to see the Japanese
NASA food scientists to map out all of their
Space agency dock with the International Space Station, but it's been taken up by the Soyuz launch. But enjoy.
Shrimp cocktail to different pork chops, things of that nature. Food in space, not as you might imagine. They don't have the freeze-dried ice cream. We actually are able to send real ice cream sometimes, and most of their food not coming in tubes. It's dehydrated, and so it actually has we call it a shelf-stable life, so it'll maintain taste and nutrition for up to 2 to 3 years. Right now, though, we are just under 6.5 minutes away from launch. We have teams here in Mission Control Houston standing by to monitor. They'll be much more involved once the vehicle actually approaches the space station, and then overseeing today's mission, Mission Control Moscow out in Koryov. They're going to be talking directly to the crew during their flight up to orbit. And on the right there, a continuing look at a live view of the Soyuz rocket on the launch pad. We are just 6 minutes away. At this point, all of the pre-launch operations are complete. And the countdown, the first and second stage engines are ready for launch. They've confirmed that they've gotten telemetry from the rocket, indicating that all the primary and backup systems are ready to support.
6 minutes to launch. 6 minutes to launch.
And we just heard the call that the launch key has been inserted in the launch bunker. That's probably one of the coolest things about one of these launches is they do use an actual key that transitions the launch sequence into its automatic mode. So we are T-minus 5 minutes, 15 seconds away from launch. And at this point, the range at Baikonur has been cleared. The Soyuz rocket ready to begin its journey.
Just saying.
Ground measurement system is activated by round 1 command. Combustion chamber nitrogen purge.
Nitrogen purge.
We are T-minus 4 minutes, 30 seconds at this point. Fuel lines, the combustion chamber being purged with nitrogen, so using a nitrogen gas to blow out any remaining vapors of fuel or oxidizer that may be in those fuel lines. At this point, the crew member have their helmets closed inside the cabin. They're strapped in and ready for launch.
Sarmat, how do you read me? How do you read me? So loud and clear. Everything is fine on board. Copy.
You're hearing a translation between the commander, Oleg Skropochka, and the actual launch engineers there in Baikonur, reporting everything good on board. The crew ready to go.
About 4 minutes. 4 minutes to go. Something like that.
Ground measurement system is activated by round 2 command.
Mostrovia.
Ключ на дренаж. Есть дренаж.
Oxidizer and fuel drain and safety valves of launch vehicle are closed.
It's a great erection. It's a great erection. It's probably one of Russia's greatest erections.
And just passing the 3-minute mark now, away from launch. All the cockpit displays inside the Soyuz are lit up and ready for cosmonaut Oleg Skropochka to keep an eye on during today's flight. All the onboard systems are switched over to onboard control, continuing to march down 2 minutes, 40 seconds away from liftoff.
Because that's why we all watch this, is for the launch.
Repress.
And keep an eye on the videos. You'll see 2 large umbilical towers or arms kind of connected to the rocket still. The taller one is the first umbilical tower. That'll separate the booster, and that'll initiate auto sequence start. That coming right at around T-minus 35 seconds. And when you see the smaller umbilical detach, that means we are 15 seconds away from launch.
2 minutes, about 2 minutes, something like 2 minutes.
And T-minus 2 minutes from launch.
Big jam, I tell you. Big jam. Fuck, I'm good. Just ask me. So after the 2 minute mark, we'll be coming out to the 1 minute mark in a little under 1 minute. And see these three great people from their respective
1
nations.
minute 30 seconds away. It does look like we have some cloud cover there in Baikonur, so you may see it disappear into the cloud deck pretty quickly. That first stage going to light up the night sky, though. It's going to burn for the first several minutes before those 4 strap-on boosters break away at just about 1 minute and 58 seconds into the flight.
Kazakhstan is not known for its sunny days. It is a desert.
1 minute and counting.
But
1 minute to liftoff contact. Copy. Everything is fine on board. We're feeling well, and we're ready for launch. Copy.
Coming up to 1 minute.
Vehicle to internal power.
And you see that first umbilical separating.
I see they have YouTube online and Periscope online.
And now keep an eye on the one a little bit lower down. Once that separates, you know we're 15 seconds away from liftoff.
Just don't want to. I don't want to know me. Please cite your broadcast reply to these changes. Paid plan.
Пуск, бортовое питание.
Auto sequence initiated.
Auto sequence start. Second umbilical separating. T-minus 15 seconds. You can see the engine starting to fire.
Second umbilical.
The first stage ramping up.
Engine turbo pumps at flight speed. Engines at maximum thrust.
And liftoff.
Liftoff.
Alex Kropotchka, Jessica Mir-Hazza, Ali Al-Mansuri leaping forth from Gagarin start on their way to the International Space Station.
60 seconds in flight. First and second stage thrusters are operating just fine. Copy. Everything is fine on board the Soyuz. We're feeling great. Copy.
We're going to continue to get these translations throughout the flight. Everything's still sounding good with that first stage. You can see the 4 strap-on boosters lighting up the night sky. Soyuz delivering 930,000 pounds of thrust with that first stage, the 4 boosters and the single core engine. You can see them punching through the cloud layer there.
Wow. That was
First stage measures 68 feet in length, 24 feet in diameter, burning liquid fuel for the first 2 minutes of the flight.
The flight, pitch, your roll are nominal.
So pitch, yaw, and roll referring to the orientation of the vehicle. Nominal, a word you'll hear a lot. That just means everything's proceeding normally. Continuing to get good first stage indicators from the Soyuz.
Yeah, proceeding normally.
Things looking good inside the cabin. You can see Jessica Mir at the top of your screen. Alex Kropotchka at the bottom there in the commander's seat.
First and second stage thrusters are operating nominally.
A little over a minute and a half into the flight, everything continuing to go well with the Soyuz crew.
Well done. Well done, Russia.
They've already well exceeded over 1,100 miles an hour. The next things we're going to be looking for is the escape tower jettison, and then the first stage strap-on boosters separating. And they're getting a great view. You can see that choreographed across the first stage. Strap-on boosters have separated. Along with that tower, now the core engine continuing to fire. The Soyuz already at an altitude of about 28 statute miles.
Nominal. Copy. Everything is nominal on board. We are feeling great. Copy.
So at this point, the Soyuz traveling in excess of 3,300 miles per hour. You can see those 4 strap-on boosters continuing to descend. the Soyuz power now.
You can see that the it looks like the rocket has actually just got into sunlight. Yep, you can see the sun coming up over the Earth there, and it's midnight. It's midnight in Kazakhstan right now, so it's already halfway around the Earth, and they're already seeing it from Kazakhstan.
We're over 3 minutes now inside. The rocket's altitude already 48 miles in height.
There.
At this point, traveling in excess of 4,700 miles per hour.
200 seconds into the flight. Second stage thrusters are operating nominally.
For 28,000.
So everything continuing to go well with that core stage. The core stage booster of the Soyuz, 56 feet in length, 13.5 feet in diameter, has a single engine with 4 fuel chambers, and it provides between 178,000 and 220,000 pounds of thrust, depending on the altitude, for its 3 minutes and 28 seconds of operation. This is going to continue to burn until about 4 minutes 43 seconds into the flight. Then Soyuz is going to use what's called a hot stage technique.
Copy all. Everything is nominal on board. We're feeling great. Copy.
Reports everyone doing well on board, everything continuing to go well. Again, that hot stage technique will actually see the third stage start to fire while the second stage is still connected. It has a lattice-like structure between the two stages, allowing the exhaust to escape, and that allows then the core stage to drop away, with the third stage already powering the Soyuz into its initial orbit.
The launch vehicle control system parameters are nominal. We are standing by for GK2. Second stage shutdown.
Second stage shutdown. You watch these little thingies here go down.
And standing by for that third stage ignition.
Third stage. There you go, that's third stage ignition right there. Gets a bit of a thrust. And everything goes out.
Confirmation, second stage has shut down and separated. The Soyuz now being powered by that third stage engine.
Yep. Okay,
Copy. GK2 command, cutoff command went through, and everything is nominal on board. Copy all.
It's a good sign. That the
Everything continuing to proceed smoothly. The core booster separating at an altitude of about 105 miles in height. It's about 170 kilometers. Now being propelled by the single engine of the third stage. That provides about 67,000 pounds of thrust and is going to burn for a little over 4 minutes. It will be the final phase of the rocket's journey into orbit.
Third stage thrusters are operating nominally.
And just like yesterday, as they're going to the International Space Station, I think they dock rather than, so space docking. You know, Russians and the cosmonauts and the cosmonauting.
And again, this is a view looking back towards the end, and that'll be cutting in and out this animation of what's taking place right now. That third stage engine going to continue to fire and carry the vehicle into orbit.
Birthing is where an arm comes over, grabs it, and then pulls it in. I think. And docking is where you just slide up in there in the flange. Let your protrusion into the flange. Pretty sure the Russians just ride on into the International Space Station's flange. Okay. Apparently you can listen to this all on radio if you're a bit of a radio nut at 4,000 megahertz, so 4 gigahertz. 4 gigahertz. 4 gigahertz. That's getting into radar frequency. It's very, very microwave oven-y. Download frequency is 4,000 megahertz. Yeah. Stay away from 27 gig, people. 27 gigahertz. That's 4 gigahertz. 27 gigahertz is it's just no good for everybody. It's not good for anyone. It's where it becomes a radar, and really actually start. I think it starts to become a particle. But that's just me. That's just me.
We're approaching 8 minutes since liftoff. At this point, the vehicle traveling at a velocity of over almost 13,000.
13,000. It's got to go another 4,000 kilometers an hour, miles an hour.
Down in separation, we'll see the engine on the third stage.
It's got to get another 6,000 kilometers an hour.
Spacecraft into its initial orbit.
490 seconds. The spacecraft is stable.
It looks very stable. Got to give it to the Russians. They failed enough at the start to really. They build good stuff. Monstrovia. Some will think that racist. Some will think that I'm actually half Russian.
Getting a spectacular view there. You see the third stage separate and fly away.
And Zermatt, congratulations. We're handing you over to Moscow.
Third stage, people.
Sarmat, Moscow. Go ahead. Go ahead, Moscow. How are you feeling? Standing by for your report on the third stage separation. Everything was nominal and we're feeling great and are working from pages 35 through 39. Copy all, and we are standing by for the first measurement for page 36.
And just like that, 3 new crew members now in outer space, the third stage separating, and we did get a good report.
So it looks like they've got just a whole list of stuff that they have to work through. Everything's choreographed, everything's set out, time by time by time. You run the rocket engines for a certain amount of time. Well, that's probably most of it. Realistically, you run the rocket engines for a certain amount of time. It's only really in the atmosphere that you can do much about that, really. Once you're outside of, you can gimbal and try and do weird stuff, but 99% of what your orbit's going to be is going to be in the first 3 minutes. Alright, kids.
Ready to make the 6-hour journey towards the space station.
This is going to get boring very fast, and I'm going to cut it off. I love you all, and I'll see you soon.